Shalom, Israel. Yahweh Shem Yahushua Brakatham. Yahweh Shem Alatan Shem Yahushua. This is the Isupk. Started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969, under commanding General Yohana. What we do is we come out here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, the truth according to the Bible, that they are the real Israelites. You understand? It being Friday, of course, we're going to get into another ancient Hebrew class. The Lashawan Qadash class is designed to give you more vocabulary, to give you some more examples of the Hebrew. The more you practice it, the more you'll start to retain it. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to get into today's topic, which is called ancient wisdom. Of course, one of the best ways for you to get used to the way that the Hebrew is put together is to see sentences. Of course, there's scriptures that are precepts that have very long, drawn out sentences, but in the book of Proverbs, there are plenty of examples of what we call one-liners or real quick points to be made, which are really good examples of sentence structures. And so what we've done today is we're going to Proverbs 14 and 26, 27. We're going to skip 28. We're going to go straight to 29. And we're going to do those 3 verses today, and we're going to break them down. Now, before we do, I'm going to leave the board like this. If you want to get a chance to write it down, now's the time to do so. Screenshot it. Take a photo of it, you know what I mean? Actually get a notebook and loose leaf paper and start writing it down. Make sure to give yourself a space in between each line. Don't write directly under, because you want to have space for the breakdowns. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you could use a pen if you think you could go without making mistakes, with different colors, so that you can actually outline some of the ways that I like to outline the root words, the extended words, the possessive adjectives, and the prepositions and everything that we add to it. And then specific choice phrases or words that we get from these scriptures today, we're going to add them to our vocabulary, which is going to be on the bottom left, so that we can focus on our vocabulary words today. And then, of course, just filling out all of these and translating it into English, of course. So that's going to be today's purpose. I'm gonna give a few minutes for brothers and sisters that are tuning in to go ahead and get that on the board, while we set the class up and share it online across the different platforms that we are. So bear with me 1 second, and here's a chance to write it down, and we'll make any corrections if there are any mistakes along the way. But this is for the gist of it. This is pretty much on point right here with those 3 verses that we'll be talking about today, and we're of course going to break them down here in a minute. All right, so bear with me 1 second while I do that. Let's see. All right, cool. The live is good. All right. Give it another minute here. Go ahead and write down what you see on the screen. This is probably one of the classes. This is one of the classes that are very interactive. You want to try to get involved with it by practicing what you see on the board and going along with us. It's best learned when it's implemented on your own work as well. So don't be afraid to get a chance to jump in there and try writing these characters down. I try writing them larger so that it's easier to see. I hope that it's picking up on the camera pretty well. We'll be getting started here in a second, though. 1 second. All right. So what we'll do is first we're going to start by reading. Okay, we're going to try to read these characters, and then of course we're going to go in and break down and translate them. But getting a good understanding of the alphabet, which should be visible here on this side of the screen, is of course the bread and butter. That's what you want to get down. Now, of course, these classes are a little bit more advanced in that sense because this is with the assumption that you may have already known the alphabet. For officers that are in the school, it's a requirement to know both of these versions of the same alphabet for the Hebrew. But we use the ancient Hebrew predominantly during the Hebrew class, and then the Assyrian Hebrew is what is read from in the Sabbath service. So it gives a good balance so that we're constantly learning both of them. You know what I'm saying? And learning one does technically help you learn the other if you could just switch back and forth between the two on the fly. But knowing how to read them is important, and it's easier to read the Lashawan Qadash. There's not as many rules. There isn't many different alternative variants that are used at the end of certain phrases, and those are things that you learn as you go. But I will say this though, that this actually looks pretty tight. Let's try reading it. Ba ya ra'ath. Ba ya ra'ath. Notice how I'm pronouncing these staccato style because they're by themselves, but then these two are joined together. So atha becomes ath. Ba ya ra'ath. Yahweh. This is a common one. This is one we use in most of our prayers. Yahweh, that's the Most High, the Lord, God, the Almighty. Ma ba tach. Ma ba tach, where ta and cha become tach. Ma ba tach. Don't worry about what it means just yet. We'll break it down here in a second. Right now, I want y'all to practice the Hebrew without all the scribble scrabble and everything that's explaining it all. I like to read it pure so you could just see it by itself and get used to the flow of it. Ba ya ra'ath Yahweh mabatach mabatach Isaiah wa laban yawa wa laban yawa wa laban yawa, and then again Yahweh wa laban yawa Yahweh machasah. Makasa. Makasa. So that's going to be verse 27. We're going to read it straight through one time. And we'll go to the next verse. Ba yara'ath Yahweh mabatach Isaiah walabanyawa Yahweh machasa. So that's how you pronounce it. That's what it sounds like. It damn near sounds Native American. If you just pronounce it in a cadence, like as if you were at one of the old Native American powwows, you kind of get the gist of it, how a lot of the Native American culture has held up the spirit behind the language. However, the Lashawan Qadash in its purest form is a very, they consider it to be barbaric, but it's really just real simple, and it's made in a way that can be pronounced very loud. It's not a soft language like Spanish or French. It has a lot of real soft accents. It's very, very straightforward. I, ya, wa, ha, za. Like it's just constant. Basically, it's just constant loud speech. It's almost like all caps. Like the whole language is like, imagine when you're writing online, you're in a comment section or something, you disagree with someone, and you hit the caps lock. You go to work, go to town on whatever topic you're talking about and whatever passion or hobby that you have, right? It's all caps. Well, ancient Hebrew is as if it's in all caps. Now, of course, there's no cap in the Hebrew, meaning no BS, but cap meaning like capital letters, right? So just think of Hebrew as like all capital letters, and it's pronounced like that too. Yara'ath, we saw that term right here. This is being used, the same one here. So I wonder what that's going to mean. Where instead of it saying ba Yara'ath, it's just Yara'ath. Okay, so this is a continuation of the previous verse in a certain sense. We'll get that here in a second. Yara'ath Yahweh. There goes Yahweh again. That's the Most High. Makwawar. Slakia. Makwawar. Chayayam. Okay, Ya and Ma come together. and it's yum. Cha ya yum. La sawar. La sawar. That's the one all the way on the left on the second line. La sawar. We're coming down here. We're saying mama kwashya. Mama kwashya. Mama kwashya. Kwa and sha become kwash. Mama kwashya. Mawath. Mawath. It's a very important word. We'll definitely get that one in a minute. Mawath. On to the next verse. We're skipping verse 28. Verse 29 is Arak. Arak. Then it's Apayam. Apayam. I'm pretty sure it's Apayam. I don't think it's Ap, but Apayam. Rab. Rab. That's Ra and Ba becomes Rab. Okay. And we have this word here. Tabawana. Tabawana. Tabawana, if you want to pronounce it like that. Tabawana. Wa Quatazar. Wa Quatazar. Wa Quatazar. Rawach. Rawach. I believe that's the word spirit. We'll double check that later. Marayam. Marayam. Get used to the characters. The characters are very, very bold characters. You understand? They all mean certain things too. But just know that when they're put together like this, it's when it starts to create the language. Okay, it starts to get a little bit more complex when we start putting all these phrases together. But don't worry, we're going to break down the root words. We'll give you vocabulary for all the main words that are used in today's lesson. And these lessons are very compact. And so we give you a lot of information in a short amount of time because I know the attention span of a lot of Israelites coming through their kindergarten all the way to high school and college don't like sitting through hour and 45-minute classes where they constantly have to take a ton of notes like this and learn all new things. And so giving it to you in tastes, it's like when you take that first sip of that soda, hopefully, you don't drink too much sugar, but if you take that first sip of that Coca-Cola, it tastes great. By the time you get to like you 3/4 of that cola, it's kind of like, I think I had enough for one sit down, you know what I mean? But in the Hebrew, you retain the most, you create the most memorable things about it at the beginning of the lesson. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's like taking that first few sips of that soda. It's real strong and it's real intense and you're real engaged with it. But we got to make sure to give it to you in short amounts so that way you can retain more of it. And that's why these Hebrew classes have been so effective with training the officers in our school when it comes to reading the Hebrew, when it comes to, all the different things we do during the Sabbath service and all that. And so I just want to try to carry that out and create a standard that goes across all of Israel. And that's the idea of why we do these full sentences, because we're actually seeing real chunks, real examples of these phrases and sentences to where it's starting to become more second nature, where we're starting to recognize more words, add them to our vocabulary. We went through the whole thing. I believe we said Ma'rayam, and then Awalath is the last one. Awalath. We're going to read it all the way straight through. Then we're going to start breaking it down. Let's start from the top. This is Proverbs chapter 14, verse 26. You can look at the English version. I'm not hiding nothing. You can go and read these verses ahead of time so you can see what it says. But we'll be getting that here in a second anyways, and we'll be getting it word for word here in a moment. So, Ba Ya Ra'ath Yahweh Ma Batach Aiza Walaban Yawa Yahweh Ma Chasa Ya Ra'ath Yahweh, Makwar, Ka Yayam, La Sawar, Mamakwashya, Mawath, Arak, Apayam, Rab, Tabawana, Waquatazar, it's like it, Raucha, I said Rawach. That's Racha. Pretty sure that's Racha. Racha. Marayam. Awalath. All right. So that's going to be our lesson for today. But we're going to go in here and we're going to break it down. We're going to give you the full understanding of what we have on the board right here. It's going to be these 3 verses right here. So let's start with Proverbs. We can get straight into it. Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 26. This says, Ba Ya Ra'ath. Okay? You understand? Ba Ya Ra'ath. Now, what is that actually saying? What are we saying when we say it? It says, the root word is Ya Ra'ath or Ya Ra'ah. Ya Ra'ah. It's basically these words. The root word, for lack of better terms, is basically this, but with the ha at the end. But I see that there's a slight difference because the context is a little different. So what it's saying is Ya Ra'ah. We'll say this is the root word. That word is fear. That word is fear. Ba Ya Ra'ath is in the fear. So the root word here is fear. That's what we have right here. That's what's bracketed. You'll notice that we bracket the root word and then we underline the root word that is being used up here. So everything on the outskirts is those filler words. Like when we say ba, that means in. And how do we know that that lines right up? Because we should see that over here. It's actually not over here. Hold on. Prepositions. Ba means at or with, and that makes sense too. In is a part of that too, technically. In, at, or with. I'm gonna probably have to rewrite this. We've been kind of stacking it all up over here, all these rules. But ba ya ra'ath, where in can mean in, at, or with. With the fear. In the fear. It kind of means that it gives you the same effect. Okay. So ba ya ra'ath. By Yara'ah, with Yara'ah being the root word, basically, in the fear of Yahweh. This of is, of course, assumed. In the fear Yahweh, which translates to he is literally, or it will say the Lord, but the root word is the full phrase right here. Yahweh. It's the Most High's name. That's the Lord's name. Okay. We say it in the school because it's a pure name. It's without any vowels. It's just all consonants. Yahweh. Mabatach. Mabatach. The root word here, well, it's the whole thing. And so what you'll notice is that a lot of these root words have implied flares when used in a sentence. Mabatach means confidence. Confidence. Mabatach. And it even tells you in the translation, when you're looking at the interlinear, it says there is. And it's assumed. The reason why that's in brackets is because on the translation, it includes it in it, but it's not actually a part of this. This is the actual full word that's used. So if I'm being direct with how it translates when you're saying it in Hebrew, it's saying in fear, Yahweh, confidence. That's how Ebonic Hebrew actually is. But when with English, we have a lot of these filler words that try to kind of fill in the rest of the sentence. Hebrew is more Ebonic in the sense how black people like to shorten a lot of their, yo, what's good, man? We say, oh, yo, what's going on, man? How are you doing? It's instead of saying all that, you're just like, yo, what's good with you? It's the same thing. So like in the fear of Yahweh, confidence. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's a slang, basically. Hebrew is very simple. It's not supposed to be overly complicated. It's not supposed to have a whole bunch of extra. Think of the way Black and Hispanic people talk in whatever language we speak, whether it be Spanish, whether it be English. We are constantly wanting, to shorten our sentences, to get our point across so that we say the most without saying the most. That's in our nature. That's why even when you text somebody, they don't use full sentence structure. A lot of times texting is a whole different lingo than what you would put on like a college paper or something. You know what I mean? A high school writing assignment. So just keep that in mind when we read this, okay? In fear of Yahweh is confidence. You understand? In fear of Yahweh is confidence. That's going to bring us to our first vocabulary word for the day, and that is H4009. Okay? And that is ma ba tach. Ma ba tach. Ma ba tach. What does this mean? What is the meaning of confidence? It says trust, secure, security, trust, hope, surety, or just sure. You understand? The scripture says, cast not therefore away your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. Confidence is important. It says, in the fear of Yahweh is confidence. And that goes without saying. The word fear is actually, we're gonna once we get here, we'll get that definition. Yara'ah, confidence. H4009. Isaiah means strong. Not just regular confidence, but strong confidence. You know, the kind of confidence that gives you a boldness, the kind of confidence that makes you sure. It's one thing to be confident to be, you know what? I think I know how to do this. But when you know for sure you know how to do it, that's a strong confidence. The difference between confidence and strong confidence. Isaiah means strong, mighty, that sort of thing. Wa laban yawa. Wa laban yawa. Now the root word here is laban. Laban. Or just ban in general. Ban usually means son, but laban means children, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. The son or the seed. Laban. Children. This is the root word. Laban. With technically ban, the ba and the na being the main thing. Ban. Ban normally means son. Laban, I believe, means sons or children. And then we have this phrase here has some modifiers. Wa laban yawa. Wa laban yawa is saying and his children. And his children. Wa laban yawa. Yawa means his. When you put nawa, it means our, if I'm not mistaken. Our. All right. And his children will have, and that's Yahaya. Haya is the root word right here. And that means to become, to have. It's have. Let's just do that. Will have. So Yahaya. Saying will, this is a future tense word or phrase. Will have. Yahaya. So the word haya means have. The modifier here is a prepositive adjective. Yah, will have. Okay? This also means will. So those are examples that we've seen those used as prepositions. And what is it that they're going to have? Refuge. It's this word, machasa. Machasa, refuge. Machasa. It's the whole phrase. But again, it's implied here, a place of. We'll just keep that as well. In the fear of the Most High is strong confidence, and his children will have refuge. The word refuge. If we have space, we'll put that on the board later. Machasa. But just to say it real quick, refuge and shelter or trust. Think about it like this. When you're in a house that is built strong, you feel safe in that house. You have trust in that those walls will hold from the storm that is outside. That is very simple. It's comparable to the confidence and strength in your confidence that you have in the Most High because you follow his laws. When it's saying in the fear of the Lord, what it's really saying is when you follow God's laws in the fear of the Lord. That's because you respect him and you follow the orders that are given, much like how you would follow the orders of a parent that you respect, because they're giving you orders, you follow them because you know there are punishments that are received if you don't follow them. And so in that fear, you do obedience. You are obedient to the Most High. There's confidence in being obedient to the Most High because you know that if you are following his orders, that there is safety, there is refuge from the dangers of the world. That's what's so important about even just a simple phrase like this, taking it into the Hebrew and breaking it down and getting a good understanding of just how much confidence you need to have in following after God's laws. And then, of course, gaining more confidence once you start to keep those laws that you will be protected by the Lord. And so that's what that refuge represents. The refuge is a place or is a status with the Lord. A place of refuge. That's how it translates. You understand? Everybody gets that. We're going to go to verse 27. Again, Proverbs chapter 14. We're now going to verse 27. And this is what it looks like. Yah-Ra'ath. There goes that phrase again. Yah-Ra'ath. It's fear. Let's go ahead and now break that down. So, Yah-Ra'ath. Yah-Ra'ah is the root word. Okay. Yah-Ra'ah is the root word. The fear of, and this is again implied, Yahweh. The fear of Yahweh. This is continuing what was said in the previous verse. That's why it's repeating the same thing that the previous verse started with. By Yara'ath Yahweh. Yara'ath Yahweh. You see how these two precepts start the same way, basically? Let's now get an understanding of what the word fear is, okay? Because when you think of fear, it's almost like we think of shivering in a corner of a room scared, right? That's what people automatically think of when they think of the word fear. But let's get a deeper understanding using the Bible to, of course, educate. So this is going to be Strong's Concordance H3374. H3374. Okay? And that is Yah-Ra'ah. I'm going to write it just how the root word is. Yah-Ra'ah. Yah-Ra'ah. And that's Yah-Ra'ah. Now, this word means fear, reverence, it also means awesome. That's what it says. Reverence, this is the one that I want to focus on because reverence is respect. That's what reverence means. Um, Reverence is in recognition of, right? So in the fear of the Most High, you're not ignoring the Most High. You're revering the Most High, meaning you're respecting what was said. You're not ignoring the orders that were given. When you're in the world and you don't keep God's laws, it's as if you're ignoring God. You ignore his laws. You don't reverence him. You don't take into consideration the things that he says to do. And because of that, we find ourselves in all types of terrible situations. But we could be a whole lot better than that if we follow after his commandments and we do things the right way. So when it comes down to the fear of the Most High, yes, it does mean fear. It also means reverence or respect or in awe of or awesome. What does awesome mean? Awesome means in awe of. You understand? That's why awe is the beginning of the word awesome, meaning in awe of. You are amazed by. So, dang, that's awesome. When you say that something's awesome, that means that it what's the word? Impresses you. So God is impressive because he has the ability to uphold wrath on you, uphold pain, uphold security, refuge, trust, hope. So you could choose which way you want to go. But in the fear of the Most High is strong confidence, and his children will have a place of refuge, meaning the children of Israel, because the children of Israel were the ones that were given God's law, statutes, and commandments. Just so happens that we're the ones that are punished for not keeping them, while the rest of the world has basically influenced many of our people into being like them because they are not in the fear of the Most High and they don't get punished for not keeping his laws. And so we see that as an excuse to not have to keep them either. That is a problem. That is a problem because that means that we now have to reverse our brainwashing that the world has put on us and come back into the fear of the Most High and come back into the culture. So it's very important that we do that. Now, moving forward onto here, it says the fear of Yahweh. This next word, ma'kowar, says ma'kowar. The root word here is, what's the whole thing? Ma'kowar, a fountain. A fountain. It's interesting. It starts with the word ma, which means water. So a fountain starting with ma, I feel like that makes sense. Ma'kowar, okay? Ma'kowar, an issue, a spring, a fountain, a flow. That's what that means. Is a fountain. Kayayam. Kayayam. The root word is kaya. Kaya. This is the root word. This means life. The fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life. Wa ra'ath Yahweh ma'kowar kayayam. Kayayam is a fountain of life. All right. The next word is lashawan. Lashawan. Sawar is the root word here. So lashawan. So what is it that we're saying? Sawar means to call back, to turn away. Turn away. Turn away. The root word turn away is sawar. So what this is saying by having a la at the beginning is to turn away. To turn away. Or implied here, to turn somebody away, because it's talking about this being a part of somebody's lifestyle. Okay. The fear of the Lord is a lifestyle that is a fountain of life to turn away mama kwashya. Mama kwashya. Let's get that. Ma wa kwash. Ma wa kwash. So technically this part of the phrase right here with the technical wa that's supposed to be in between here, ma wa kwash, that is the root word. Ma ma kwash ya is how it's used in this sentence here, and that's saying snare. So ma wa kwash means snare. Ma kwash right here, the root word, that's snare. Ma wa kwash is saying from the snares. So okay, mama kwash ya, from the snares. Mama kwashya. Mama kwashya. Of death. Mawath. Mawath. It's the full phrase, I believe. Let me see. Mawath. Mawath. Right there. So let's go ahead and read what we got so far, and then we'll go into this last verse. We'll pick up another vocabulary word somewhere here. In the fear of Yahweh is confidence of strength. It says, in the fear of Yahweh there is confidence, strong confidence. Okay, I might have to move this a little. I feel like it's too far. There we go. In the fear of Yahweh there is confidence strong, and his children will have a place of refuge. How do we read that in the Hebrew? Let's get it. Ba yara'ath Yahweh ma buatach Isah wa labanyawa Yahweh ma chasah. Again. Ba yara'ath Yahweh ma batach Isah wa labanyawa Yahweh ma chasah. All right, now the next verse after that, verse 27, the fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life to turn away from the snares of death. The fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life to turn away from the snares of death. Again, the reverence, the in awe of, the awesome of Yahweh, meaning the respect of the impression of the Most High. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the keeping of the laws is the strength in that. The scripture even tells us that. That's why having an understanding of the fear of the Lord is a very important thing, because it's assuming that you already know that, because as you've been reading in the book of Proverbs up till you get to chapter 14 and so on, is that it mentions the commandments right along with the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, is what it says. And then following the Lord's commandment shows that you fear him. And so in that sense, just think of that as keeping God's laws gives you confidence. Keeping God's laws keeps you safe. Keeping God's laws gives you life. Keeping God's laws keeps you from dying. You understand what I'm saying? And so that fear of the Lord is what it's talking about in constant phrases. And so getting more and more understanding of what those laws are is one of the most important things when you come into the school, because keeping God's laws is, yes, it's the foundation that everything such as brotherhood, love, unity, black and brown unity, lack of selflessness, all of those things come from keeping God's laws, because they become a natural part of your life when you do that. And then at the same time, life is more abundant. Being kept away from death and bad situations and rape and murder and drugs, and being around those types of environments, or at least not being affected by those types of environments, is much more possible with the fear of the Lord and the keeping of his commandments. Strong confidence, being able to walk into a room full of sinners and people that are smoking and people that think that they're cool, and know that you are actually the coolest one there, respectfully and humbly, because you keep God's laws. That's not something that phases you when peer pressure hits. Somebody's trying to pass a blunt to you at that high school, house party that all the kids skip school to go to. You understand what I'm saying? Or it's on the weekend where everybody brings their liquor and alcohol and all sorts of stuff. Those things don't deter your confidence when you keep God's laws. That's the kind of mentality that our children have to have in this day and age. That's what's lacking from our youth. And they're searching and searching and trying to find better ways to live and trying to improve themselves. But they run into all types of snares. They run into all types of influences and influencers and TikTok accounts and people that want to give advice. And some of it may actually hit pretty good. But it should be, if it agrees with God's laws, then it is good. The scripture says, prove all things, hold fast to that which be true. And so if we know that God's laws is what is true, then when people say things that resonate with God's laws, then it's good advice. But when it's not, or when it's mingled with any other type of doctrine that goes away from God's laws, then you have to be careful not to be influenced by these things, because they cause snares of death. They cause anxiety and lack of confidence. They cause lack of refuge and security and hope. And then then you become fearful of something else and not of the Lord. You're going to be in fear and respect of something. Let it rather be God than to be the fear of punishment from God for not keeping his laws. That's kind of what these precepts are saying. So reading it one more time, Yara'ath Yahweh Makwawar Ka Yayam La Sawar Mama Kwashya Mawath. You understand? Fear of Yahweh is the fountain of life to turn away from the snares of death. It's a very good saying. Very good. Last one for today. Start with this one. A rock. We're gonna be skipping verse 28 as it says right there. So I want no one being like, oh, why'd you skip 28? Well, I just wanted to get to this scripture here. A rock. A rock. A rock. The word arak means slow. And in this scripture, it's implied that what is being said is he who is slow. He who is slow. He who is slow. Apayam. Apayam. Ap. Or apa. This is the root word right here. This word means wrath. Let's go ahead and get that right here too. This is going to be one of our vocabulary words, which is H639. So H639. And it's a real quick one. Apa. Apa. What does it mean? It means anger, wrath. What other words we got? It also means nose or nostril. It can also mean face. He is slow to wrath. Okay. The yam here makes it interesting because it's making the word anger or wrath plural. So when it's saying right here, it's saying to wrath. Wrath meaning a buildup of anger. It's one thing to be bothered by something, to be upset by something, but at the point where it's at a higher level, apa becomes apayam, which means wrath. So it's more than one anger. It's a buildup. Think of it like a buildup because you're turning anger into a plural. You understand what I'm saying? So you're upset for many different reasons. And that's why I'm saying he who is slow, it's kind of hard to read. He who slow to wrath, Rob. Let's get the rest of this. Rob means great. I need to get that in English. Hold on. Verse 29 says, he that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. Okay. So when we say he that is slow to the wrath, great understanding. The word understanding is right here. It is thabawan. 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 There's a brother in school named Thabawan. Most High in Christ. Thabawan. It's this right here. This is the root word. Thabawan. This means understanding. That's a perfect name for Thabawan Salaki. Also, skill. Understanding is also skills. If you were to have played Kobe in a one-on-one, his skill for basketball coincides with his understanding of basketball. Because not only did he put in that work, he displays it. He embodied it, right? He may have missed a ton of shots, but he learned a lot along the way. Rise again, Kobe. All right, so it says Rob Tabawana, Wana, because it's showing it right here. At the end, you have a ha at the end. That's a possessive adjective with a ha at the end. And so that is saying has. Has. So when I put ha at the end, we see an example where it means has. Understanding. So we add it to the end of a phrase to mean that it belongs to somebody. So Arak Apayam Rab Thabawana. Root word Thabawan has understanding is Thabawana. So Thabawan means understanding or skill. Thabawana means has understanding. Because again, modifying it to fit the sentence. We're modifying it. He who is slow to wrath, great understanding. That's kind of how we talk, man. I'm trying to tell you, this is how we talk. Because if I write an implied word, it's not here. It's just implied for the sake of the translation. You understand what I'm saying? So when I look at it, like this and you read it, slow to wrath, great understanding. That's literally how it's saying it. Because these that are in brackets are actually implied for the sake of the translation. So it's saying slow to wrath, great understanding. Or slow to wrath, great is the understanding that he has. If you want to talk like Yoda for some damn reason. Because he's always talking backwards, but he's kind of talking in English like the way Hebrew would be taught, right? Because it's kind of backwards. Sentence structure is backwards. It actually lines more up with Spanish than it does English. So Hebrew and Spanish kind of get along a little bit better when it comes to sentence structure. But, of course, Hebrew is just more simple. Arak, apayam, Rabah or Rab Tabawana. We got more in this verse. Let's go ahead and get the rest. Wa Quatazar. Wa Quatazar. Root word here is Quatazar. Wa Quatazar. Now this word means short, hasty. It says impulsive in the translation. But hasty is in the definition. Impulsive and hasty. We might make that our last vocabulary word for the day. So far we got Mabatah, Yara'ah. We got Apah, possibly Quatazar. Impulsive or hasty. But now again, it says but. It says but we know that wa technically means and. So when we look at wa as a preposition, nor and but. But or and. So what is it saying? It's saying slow to wrath, great, has their skill and understanding. Impulsive or hasty, or it says but impulsive or hasty, or and impulsive or hasty, spirit of something else. So let's see. He who is impulsive of spirit, he who is. Again, this is implied. This isn't actually here. But this and this is right here. But this helps you understand the sentence structure. So it's saying, but the quick and hasty, or but he who is impulsive or quick to anger, is talking about wrath, because that's the subject, right? But he who is impulsive in spirit, ra-ha is the word right here that means spirit. Ra-ha, rawach is another way to say it. Well, a lot of times I've heard brothers pronounce it as ra-ha, so I'm just going to go with that. So ra-ha is spirit. And then of spirit is implied. But the impulsive spirit, okay, ma-rayam. The root word here is rawam or ram. Ram is the root word here. Rayam is just here because that's a part of how this is put together. But technically, Ram, it means exalt or lifts up. Exalts or lifts. Ma-rayam. Ma-rayam. And the last word is awa-lath. Awalath. The root word here is the whole phrase, and it says folly or foolishness. People that don't know how to temper themselves, people that don't know how to calm themselves down when they have an abundance of wrath that is built up in them, people that don't have control over their emotions. And this is how it all ties together. They actually lack confidence. That's why they have to be angry, because they're frustrated with the lack of confidence that they have, because they want to try to control everything, but things don't go their way, and that's where the anger sets in, because they're trying to create a shortcut to a solution rather than to actually address it in a wise manner. They exalt foolishness, which leads to death, which leads to lack of the fear of the Most High, which leads to suffering and lack of understanding, which leads to, like I said, death. So all of it ties together. These three verses, they tie together perfectly when you go through it and you understand that, just like with anything, it takes time. You got to take your time to learn something. And so learning the Hebrew takes time. So even something like this lesson, and having been here throughout the whole class today, shows that even you yourself have been building up confidence and building up discipline and being not hasty in spirit, but with discipline and understanding, you learn more. That's the mentality of what it is when you calm down and take a step back and look at the bigger picture, to put it all together in correct order and in decency. You understand? And so, again, what we just read was Proverbs chapter 14, verses 26, 27, and 29, where it talks about some of these things rooted in the fear of the Lord. And then, of course, being slow to wrath and having the ability to control your emotions. So these are some really key words that we went over. I want to go ahead and do one more vocabulary. Let's get this one. Quatazar. Let's go back to that. That's going to be, let's see, H7116. H7116. Quatazar. 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 And again, it means hasty, soon, or short in temper. Meaning impulsive. That's really what it's saying. Impulsive. Impulsive. Like in a heartbeat. You know, you think of a pulse, right? A pulse ain't nothing but a half a second, a fraction of a second for a heartbeat. And within a heartbeat, which is a very short amount of time, you're already making decisions instead of taking your time to make decisions. And so an impulsive spirit lifts up foolishness because it's not tactical, it's not planning, it's not cunning, it's not wise to act so swiftly, to act without understanding, to act without all the necessary information. That goes without anything. That goes into all types of parts of life, whether it be in tactics of war, whether it be in preparing your lifestyle, preparing your meals. And that really checks me too, because it's like if you cook a home cooked meal, it's healthier for you, but it takes longer to do. If you'd rather just go pick up some fast food, it's not healthy for you, but it is a quicker solution. And so, usually, the quicker solution is not always the best one. It is good to be able to react to things quickly, physically, like in war or in close quarters combat. But when it comes to planning, when it comes to making moves, when it comes to moving men around to best attack a situation, right? Whether it be planning on a war map or something like that, or planning other things that deal with preparations, that it's better to be not hasty or impulsive, but to take your time with it. And of course, instilling the fear of the Most High in your decisions and God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Consider the 600 laws, 600 plus laws, before you make a decision. That takes a while to do. You got to really think about some of these laws. There's a lot of them, right? So let's leave it with that. We'll definitely cover this at the beginning of next class because we got some really good vocabulary words. We got mabatak, which means security, trust, hope. Yara'ah, which means fear, or reverence, or in awe of. Apah, which means anger or wrath. Quatazar, which means hasty or impulsive. That's not the definition this time. So we'll go ahead and read it in English, then we'll read it one more time in the Hebrew, and then we'll go ahead and close out today's class. It's been an excellent class. I hope y'all can see the board really well. Let me just check the comments real quick. Make sure to check into the class if you're tuning in so you can get credit for these classes for those of you that are trippers. Starting from the top in English. In the fear of Yahweh, there is strong confidence, and his children will have a place of refuge. Ba Yara'ath Yahweh Mabatach Izah Walabanyawa Yahweh Machastah. The fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life to turn away from the snares of death. Yara'ath Yahweh Makwawar Ha Chayayam La Sawar Ma Kwashya Mawath. He who is slow to wrath has great skill and understanding, but he who is impulsive and hasty of spirit exalts folly or foolishness. And that is Arak Apayam Rab Tabawana Wa Quatazar Racha Ma Rayam Awalath. All right, and reading the whole thing. In the fear of Yahweh, there is confidence of strength, and his children will have refuge. The fear of Yahweh is a fountain of life to turn away from the snares of death. He who is slow to wrath, great has skill and understanding. But he who is impulsive and hasty of spirit exalts foolishness. I'm reading that in the Hebrew. By Yara'ath Yahweh, Mabwa Tach Izah Walabanyawa Yahweh Machasa La Ra'ath Yahweh Makwar Kayayam La Sawar Mamakwashya Mawath Arak Apayam Rab Tabawana Wa Quatazar Racha Ma Rayam Awalath. That's going to be our lesson for today. This is a great opportunity for you to write down what you see on the board, get the practice in, get the alphabet of the ancient Paleo Hebrew, in the Assyrian, like what we use during the Sabbath service. We've broken down H4009. We've broken down H3374, H639, and H7116. Those are our vocabulary words today. So, with that, again, this is Officer Yalawan Bonzabalan. This is the ISUPK, started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We are under Commanding General Yohana, and we're here to teach the truth of the Bible for so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians, the truth of the Bible, and that they are the real Israelites. And with that, Shalom. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Brakatham. Yahweh Shamar Alatan Ba'ashem Yahushai.